Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I'm Teresa Holmes. Teresa Holmes. I'm Teresa Holmes, your club president. I'm helping a few people out. You know who you are. But the president is guilty of it as well, right? Today's meeting is sponsored by Victor Rodriguez and Joe McNeil of Isthmus Partners. I hope you were able to greet them at the door. Thank you for your support of today's luncheon. All right, let's direct our attention to the opening music. Dick Lovo will be leading us in the singing of America the Beautiful with Elaine Mishler on the piano. And just a quick reminder, if you have your face mask off because you've been eating, if you'll put it back on, unless you're at the podium, when you're singing, we would appreciate that. And then following our music, our guests will be introduced by Lester Pints.
Sing out, masks and all.
That's right.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm here to introduce our guests, and I would like each guest, as I say your name, to stand and remain standing until all the guests have been introduced. So we have with us today Denise DeMarb, who is the guest of Mark Clear. We have Stanley Johnson, who is the guest of George Hidalgo. We have Tom Tegeter, who is a visiting Rotarian from Waukesha Noon, as the guest of Greg Tipple and Dave Johnson. And we have Zach Wood, who is the guest of Mary Donahue. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Dick, Elaine, and Lester. All right, Jen Savino chairs our community grants campaign or committee this year, and we're going to watch a brief announcement that she has about this year's community grant applications and process.
Hello, I'm Jen Savino, and I chair the Community Grants Committee again this year. I wanted to let you know that our community grant applications materials are available on our club's website. I encourage you to think of nonprofits that you might be involved with and encourage them to apply. We have a couple of updates on our timeline for this year. The deadline for submitting applications is December 1st to the Rotary office. After that, our 16-person committee will start reviewing about 100 applications. We want to make sure that everyone stays safe in this continuing pandemic, so we have adjusted our committee work, so most of our meetings will be virtual, as our visits as well. We also like to point out that this committee has a conflicts of interest policy, and that states that no member on the committee or their immediate family members may serve on a board that we're reviewing or be involved with the application process for any organization applying. We feel this helps keep our process as fair as possible to all of the organizations that are applying for funding. Our committee then reports recommendations to the club board of directors and the Madison Rotary Foundation in mid-March. The money generated from the grants program come primarily from our annual community grants drive, which begins this week, so please be generous in your giving. We can all do great things with the money that we raise together. We also have a 5% of a 3-year average of market value for our general endowment fund that can be used for the grants program as well. So we anticipate having about $200,000 this year to give out in grants for 2022. The application form and materials are on our website and are downloadable in our download section. We also have a couple of printed copies in the back by the button table. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and contact me or the Rotary office, and thank you for your continued support.
All right, as Jen said, today we are kicking off our annual community grants campaign. And so Jason Ilstrup is chairing this year. And he has an announcement as he kicks off the campaign.
I could not have been farther from the podium. I was enjoying this delicious Thanksgiving meal because, as you all find out, my birthday's on Thanksgiving, so I really do love some turkey and stuffing. So thank you to George Wiesner and the team at the Park Hotel for making my birthday special all month. Speaking of all month, let me get my notes out. You don't want me waxing poetic. You all know that I love a hot mic, and I could talk forever about anything. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jason Ilstrup, president of Downtown Madison, Inc. That's my day job. But for the next 10 weeks, I am going to be the chair of the Community Grants Campaign. And we just heard, thank you. At least one of you is excited about me harassing you over the next 10 weeks. Really excited about this year's campaign. We just heard from Jen about the importance in the groups that will be participating in this year's campaign. So you should have received a very nice handwritten letter or typed with my signature on it. This is the beginning of the campaign, and we are excited for all of you to participate. Now, this year's campaign, I will say, no offense to Ellsworth and Herman and all the past years, is even more important. Because as you all know, 2020 and 2021 has been very difficult on many of us, right? There are many of us in the community that are suffering. There are many of us that are suffering. And sadly, there are many kids in the community that are suffering. And this plays itself out in a myriad of ways. Kids don't know in this community where their next meal is going to come from. They don't know where they're going to get their school supplies. They don't know, we can talk to our great friend Gloria Rez with Briar Patch, where they're going to sleep at night. Prior to the pandemic, 1,672 kids in Dane County were experiencing homelessness. Think about that. Over 1,600 kids were either living on the streets, in a shelter, or doubled up with friends and family. That means that the suffering has only gotten worse since the pandemic. So this year's campaign is more important than ever. But thanks to the generosity of all of you, there's something we can do about this. For decades, the Rotary Club of Madison has initiated the Community Grants Campaign. So through this campaign, we can help alleviate the suffering by talking with the groups that Jen has, the groups that work directly with kids throughout our community. They can help give back, but we can't do that unless we raise the money. We all joined Rotary for service above self. Where is it? Oh, it's way over there. There it is. For service above self, right? So I know you all have it in your hearts to give. You all can make situations a lot better for our kids in our community. Because as my good friend Charles McLemmon says, service changes lives. And you all have made the first step by becoming Rotarians. So now we're going to ask you to make the next step of opening up your wallets. Because your donation will change lives throughout the kids of this region. We're asking you to give. This year's goal is $150,000. It's a significant increase from last year's goal. Why is there a significant increase? Two simple reasons. There is a ton of need in the community, And second, because we believe in you, Rotarians. We will make this goal. If everyone gives as much as they can, we will easily surpass this goal. We also have a little bit of another goal here, not just $150,000, but we're going to beat Herman Bauman, who in 2019 had 95.7% participation from Rotarians. We can do better. I don't know how, but we can do better. So over the next 10 weeks, this is the how, we're going to make sure you understand the importance of giving. You're going to understand how to give, why to give, and where you're giving, and who you're giving to. So you're going to get just a barrel full of me over the next 10 weeks. I apologize now. My wife thinks I have too much energy in small doses, but you'll get me in large doses. We're going to make you laugh. We're going to make you cry. You really are going to be tired of me. But we're going to do everything we can to reach those goals. I'll be calling you. I'll be speaking up here. I'll be emailing you, because this goal is more important than ever. And so I will be there to help you reach our goal so that we can help as many kids in the community as we can, because service changes lives. We'll see you next week. Yes, questions from the audience. Can I take questions, Madam President? Joe. Mm-hmm. Yes. If we reach the goal before 10 weeks, I will do whatever you need me to do. If that means stopping, I'll take a pie in the face, I'll do a dunk tank, I'll do whatever we need. Yes. The check is being written out right now. It's $150,000, and we can be done right here today. Who do we make it? That is a good question. Someone from the staff who knows much more.
Madison Rotary Foundation.
There we go, Madison Rotary Foundation. Any other questions? But Joe, I did love your question. All right, she's telling me I have to get off the stage. See ya next week.
Well, I can certainly say I will be glad to have you laughing, making us cry, and the like, and all that other sort. I will announce that our board is fully 100% committed. As your president, I contributed from a major donor perspective this year to kick off the campaign with joy and charge. So our checks from the board are already in. And so we'll be looking forward to all of your contributions. Everyone in our organization, our club, has a responsibility towards this campaign. It's going to be great. And I think I'm gonna, let's celebrate that. I think I'm gonna be excited to see how close, Herman, I think I saw you here, to see how close, see how close Jason gets over your last year's goal. Okay, all right, so moving on. I wanted to let members know that Lee Richardson has submitted her resignation from our board, but is looking forward to contributing to being a Rotarian. So we would like to wish Lee all the best and thank her for her service on our board. Our board has named, as of Monday, our monthly board meeting for November has named Sandy Geller to replace Lee on the board with a term ending June 30th of 2022. Sandy joined Rotary in 2013, and she is a former member of the Madison Breakfast Rotary. There's her picture there. And she is a financial advisor with Robert Baird and Company. So Sandy, if you're in the room, I don't think I saw her, but if you're in the room, thank you for your service. Next week, we will elect 6 new club directors. So we have 12 members who serve a 2-year staggering term on our club board, with 6 members who are actually elected annually. So the immediate past president also serves a 1-year term. So our current board members are, you'll see on the screen there, Brian Baskin, Herman Bauman, Mark Clear, Stephen Elke, Sandy Geller, George Hidalgo, Anita Muhammad, Charles McLymans, Mary O'Brien, Valerie Rank, Scott Strong, Rob Vandenberg, and Cheryl Whitkey. Let's give them a round of applause. As I mentioned, our board has 2-year staggering terms. So Mark, Stephen, Sandy, George, Anita, Mary, and Cheryl will be rolling off the board on June 30th. So we'll now begin the process to elect 6 new board members to replace these outgoing board members. The nominating committee reviewed over 60 names, and I'm pleased to introduce again to you today the nominees. If you are in the room when I call your name, please stand. Mary Donahue, Mike Gotzler, Anthony Gray, Mark Green, Annette Helmer, Jason Ilstrip, Ron Luskin, Mike McKay, Casey Okers, Janine O'Rourke, Jen Savino, James Ty, and Alex Vitani. Each of these members has served as a chair of a committee or fellowship group, which is one of the criteria that the committee reviews. On November 10th, our membership will select 6 of these leaders to join our board for a 2-year term starting next July 1st. The 13 nominees represents the future leaders of our club, and any combination of those 6 will serve us well for the next 2 years. Because of the pandemic, remember, we will continue to use an electronic balloting process for the election. We'll be sending an email to all the members on November 10th, and then members will need to click on the link and then complete the ballot by noon the next day. We'll also send out the ballot in advance to any member without an email 10 days before the election, so you have sufficient time to get the ballot back to us. Thank you again, nominees who have agreed to place your names in the nomination process for this year. Ashley Quinto Powell chairs our Activate and Engagement Committee, and she has an announcement.
Thank you, President Teresa. I am bonkers excited about the end of the year vis-a-vis the Activate and Engagement Committee. So as we talk about quite a lot, folks who join our Rotary join for the networking, but stay for the service. And certainly we have a lot of emphasis on the service. But for the next 2 months, we're gonna bring back networking. I know you all are so excited. Me too. Okay, so here is how I'm gonna activate your networking muscles. So every time you have a meeting with a fellow Rotarian, either in person or Zoom, either works, snap a picture and put it on social media, tagging the Rotary Club of Madison, either on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I'm gonna go back and tally all the points. This contest lasts from exactly this minute through mid-January. And each time you're in a photo, you get 1 point. So if you wanna take a Zoom screenshot, at least on my computer, it is Shift-Control-4. And then post it on either LinkedIn or Facebook, and there will be lots of prizes. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Jane, are you ready? And I am ahead in the points game. Your president has been meeting with people and taking pictures. I have 5 points already. Come on, Rotarians, let's get there. Thank you, Ashley. She said it's starting this very minute. Oh, well, you get the pictures. Okay, all right, fine. If it didn't pass the 4-way test, I can start over again. I'm fine with that. I'm all about meeting with people, right? All right, so thank you for that, Ashley. Pints for Polio, I have an announcement. So another way that you can connect with Rotarians in a way of having fun is on November 15th, we are hosting our Pints for Polio at our Pints for Polio event at the headquarters grill and bar and grill in Oregon. So Rotarians from our club and clubs around the district will be there, and we'll be donating. Headquarters will be donating $1 for every pint of beer and any other, like soda, that is sold between 11 a.m. through the close period. So consider stopping by. There'll be Rotarians there during the specific hour. I think the Rams are playing the 49ers. It's a fun Monday night football game. So we'll be there from around, 7 until maybe close. We'll see what happens, or at least until the game's over. But that's this year's annual Pints for Polio event. Thank you. All right. And Ashley, if I didn't say this, thank you for working on ways to cause our Rotarians to connect locally. If you want to have a broader way to do that, Rotarians, we encourage you to participate in district events as well as the annual Rotary International Convention. Jason Barron is here and told me that he is actually attending with Paul and I in Houston of 2022. So from June 4th to June 8th. So I encourage any member who would like to come along with incoming president, our president-elect Paul Hoffman, and myself. You can do a Google search of 2022 Rotary International Convention, and you'll find more details on the registration page. If you do that before December 15th, you'll actually experience a discounted registration fee of $15. So if you do that, please let myself or the Rotary office know. Thank you. Birthdays. We have birthdays to celebrate with a bit of humor or wisdom that complements our Rotary mission, and we encourage our members to make an age-appropriate gift to the Madison Rotary Foundation, rounded up to $100 for our club's Synergy Scholarship Fund. If you're in the room, Rotarian, when I call your birthday, please stand. October 31st, Chris Ivanoff. November 2nd, Brian Anderson. November 2nd, Pete Turkavi. November 2nd, Eric Kriegoff. November 2nd, Victor Rodriguez, who says, most of you know that I am a diehard Tennessee Vols football fan. Truth is, I haven't had much to cheer for in years. However, this Saturday, win or lose, I will be cheering loudly as I get to relive this pre-COVID picture from Lexington, Kentucky, 2 years ago. What an awesome birthday present, friends, family, and football, and a hint of bourbon. I am a blessed man. Way to go. November 5th, Jonathan Solari. Thanks to our celebrants for their, their contributions to the Madison Rotary Foundation. Please join me in wishing them all a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Coach Johnson, did they tell you that we sing here? All right, members in the news. We have a few members in the news today. But before I get to those items, I'd like to let members know that Loretta Himmelsbach had hip replacement surgery yesterday. So we wish her a speedy recovery. I'm sure she'd appreciate some cards or well wishes. And you can find her address in our members only section of the roster or contact the Rotary office. Members in the news, Rhonda Adams was a co-host on Magic 98, where she talked about the River Food Pantry and its holiday campaign, 11-1. Ann Newhart Morrison was quoted in an article titled, Madison Takes Big Steps Toward Major Remake of Public Housing on the Triangle, Wisconsin State Journal, October 27th. Now on to our program. Our speaker today is UW Women's head hockey coach, Mark Johnson, who has established the Badgers as one of the nation's elite programs during his 18 years in Madison. He is the winningest coach, not only in Wisconsin history, but is the winningest coach in NCAA collegiate women's hockey history. Say that 5 times fast, right? Mark is the son of legendary hockey coach, Badger Bob Johnson. He played hockey at the UW and led the Badgers to the 1977 National Championship. He emerged as a star in Madison, becoming the school's second all-time leading scorer with 256 points in just 3 seasons. He led the 1980 U.S. Olympic team's gold medal winning effort with 11 points, including 2 goals in the Miracle on Ice game against the Soviet Union. You're hot stuff. Following his Olympic experience, Coach Johnson also embarked on a successful 11-year NHL career before he started coaching. We look forward to your presentation, Coach Johnson, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking to us today. I want to remind you that we will have, in the event of time, a Q&A session. When the mic comes to you, please wait for the mic before you ask your question. And with that, Rotarians and guests, let's welcome Coach Johnson to our podium.
I want to know what you're doing in 45 minutes. I got practice going on at LeBon here at 1:30, and I need your energy level over there this afternoon. We got a couple of games this weekend, and that energy take us a long way, so I love it. I love it. So thanks for having me. It's certainly a pleasure to spend a few minutes with you here this afternoon. Obviously, in my world, things are busy. Can you imagine being the GM and the head football coach for the Packers this morning? It's things change in everybody's world, and certainly the last 18 months for a lot of us, life has been a little bit different than we normally anticipated. But from my end, just wanted to share a couple things that we're going through as coaches, not only here in Madison at the University of Wisconsin, but throughout the country. Because I don't know if you're aware, on July 1st this past summer, the NCAA and our people in Washington, D.C. passed some legislation that now our athletes can take their name and their image and likeness, and they can actually go out and make money from it. And so that started on July 1st. We're about probably 100 days into it right now, and it's been interesting to see how that transformation is starting to take shape. I sort of call it Pandora's box, because now the box has been opened, and nobody can sit here and tell me what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now, because as time goes on, many different things are happening, you know, not only on our campus, throughout the country within different programs. And as I look at it, if you have a professional locker room sitting over here and you got these college locker rooms sitting over here, what we're doing with this NLI and giving the opportunity for these kids to make money, we're shifting our college locker rooms more towards a professional locker room. So Aaron Rodgers makes, what, $25 million or so a year. You know, the offensive guard doesn't quite make that. And so I thought I'd just share a couple things, because this is what we're going through, similar to what, you know, the Packers coach is going through this afternoon as he organizes practice. It's like, okay, what do we need to do to get ready for our next game? And for us, you know, what do we need to do as we step in the locker room, knowing that, you know, the players' shift in attitude and the way they conduct themselves is going to be a little bit different, just because all of a sudden my goaltender might have an opportunity to make X amount of dollars. My right winger might make this, you know, this other player might not make anything. And so it just brings things into your locker room. And as the leader and as a coach, the most important thing I can do is try to get a group of 18 to 22-year-old women between the ages of 18 and 23 playing together as a team. And so team chemistry is extremely important in the hockey world. It's certainly important in a lot of sports that we see here in Madison within it, because talent without teamwork is trouble. And and so this happened, you know, 18, 20 years ago, you know, when I first started on the women's side. It's like the fun part about being a leader and owning your own company and running your own program, you sort of get to set the parameters and sort of the culture of what you want to do as the leader. And so as I started to tap into what's important to me and what I thought was important to have a successful program, you know, 3 sort of pillars sort of jump out. And usually when I talk about these things because they're important. You know, it's how you're going to build your foundation. Is it going to be strong? Is it going to last through challenging times and difficult times? And, you know, you're going to have to make adjustments. You're going to have to change. But I think if you really got some concrete pillars, it gives you an opportunity to be successful. And so the first one to me is if I'm going to have a group of these young athletes, they got to have passion too. They got to have energy. They got to like what they're doing. And for us, it's, you know, being a student first and then playing hockey second. And they have to have a passion about both of them, because if you can mix both those together, now I've got somewhere to start with somebody that's going to come in and play for me. So I've got 2 assistant coaches. I've got a trainer, I've got an equipment person, I've got people that work under me. They've got to be the same way. So when people walk into my locker room, they walk into my office, they walk into my structure, they're generally the same. Passionate about what we do, excited about what we do, look for the opportunity to work with these young ladies. And so when I go recruiting and I go into somebody's house and I sit down with a set of parents and this young lady, in about 5 minutes I can get a feel of if she's passionate about schoolwork and if she's passionate about hockey. And so to me that's the most important pillar, because as I've told these kids over the course of time, I get them for 4, sometimes 5 years, and I say, if you can figure out in the next 4 or 5 years what you're passionate about, what you really like to do, the whole key is when you graduate from Wisconsin, go find somebody that'll pay you to do that. And then you got it. And it doesn't matter if you make $50,000 a year or $500,000 a year, you wake up every morning and you're excited about going to work every day and it doesn't become work. And I'm sort of a individual like that. I've been playing hockey and been involved in hockey for a long, long time, and it's a sport, it's a game. And so most days, not all days, again, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old women. And so some days are challenging, but for the most part, I don't call it work because I enjoy what I'm doing. And so if we can get these student athletes on the same par and same level as that, that's to me really a starting point. The second thing is, we all got to be committed. You got to be committed to the process, and you got to be committed to what you're doing. And so we spend time on the roads individually, myself, my assistant coaches, traveling around the world recruiting, spending time away from your families. We're committed to what we want to do and what we think gives us the best chance to be successful. And so as I interview, get to know these young ladies that we're thinking about bringing in, they've got to be committed also. They not only have to be committed to the classroom because they have to be students first, but they also have to be committed to the process of becoming better hockey players over the time that we have them. And that's a daily process. And so they've got to be committed, coaches got to be committed, and now all of a sudden you got 25 people surrounding you that have the same passion, the same desire, and the same will to do what needs to be successful. And to me, those are two really the most important parts of the 3 pillars. Getting kids that are passionate, getting them committed, and then to me the last one's the most important one. It's integrity. And so we spend a lot of time doing what we do, and you spend a lot of energy doing it. You put a lot of effort into it. To me, why not do it the right way, even when people aren't watching you? And so I think to me those 3 things and those 3 areas are what I started to build the foundation of my program under, 18, 19 years ago. And to me, the most important part of that, it's a process where things will evolve, things will change. But if you reflect back on those 3 things, to me, gives you a chance to be successful. Doesn't guarantee it, but it gives you the best opportunity to be successful, because I can have a bunch of talented kids, but if we're not committed to becoming good teammates, chances are it's not going to work. It's not going to give you an opportunity to win at the end. And I sort of relate back. I've told this story many times because, as I mentioned, talent without teamwork is trouble. So you imagine being Herb Brooks in 1980 trying to coach a bunch of all-stars. And so what the challenges that he had in dealing with this group of players. And so how do they become teammates? How do they understand their role on the team, even though I might be only playing 4 or 5 minutes compared to somebody else that might be playing 18 or 20 minutes, and understanding that my role, even though it may not seem a lot, is equally as important that somebody has a bigger role. Because if I do my job in those 4 or 5 minutes, it gives us a good chance to win. Equally as important if the player that's getting 15 to 18 minutes, they need to do their job at 100%. And so I always tell the story about teammates. And so one of the best teammates that I ever had, unfortunately, happened to be a guy that went to the University of Minnesota. Ugh. But Jim Craig, you know that name? Yep. He was our main goalie in 1980 in the Olympic team. But I always share the story about our backup goalie, Steve Janicek, who in 1979, the year before he went to Lake Placid, playing at the University of Minnesota under their coach Herb Brooks, won the national championship that spring in 1979. And so obviously Steve was a high-level goalie. Takes a lot of effort and commitment to win a national championship, and he was the goaltender for Minnesota when they won it. So I'm sure he's coming into camp and part of our Olympic team figuring that at some point through the journey and the 2 weeks in Lake Placid that he's going to get a game in. But in early January, Herb came to the goaltenders and said, Jimmy Craig's going to be our starting goaltender. And so what's it take to be a good teammate? What's the definition of a good teammate? Well, if you're Steve Janicek and all of a sudden your head coach tells you, you might not even play at all in the Olympics, you just won the national championship for the guy that's telling you that, what would your attitude be like? What would you be thinking? I mean, so you're at a crossroad. I can go left and be an SOB and a miserable guy thinking that I'm getting ripped out of this opportunity that's only going to happen once in my lifetime, or else I can take a right and I can become a good teammate. And I can show other players on the team that I'm going to continue to work hard. I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to hold people accountable. And so what would you take? It's easy to talk about. All of a sudden you put yourself in Steve's position. Well, he chose to go right. He came to practice the next, 3 or 4 weeks like nothing had happened, nothing had changed. He still worked hard. He still challenged everybody, still prepared himself that if he gets an opportunity, he's going to be ready to go in the net. And so he's the only one of the 20 players on our Olympic team in 1980 that never played a second. But yet, without his commitment, we don't win the gold medal. That's what you call a great teammate, because it takes a team that is willing to sacrifice themselves for the gooder part of the entire group. And to me, as I look back on all the teams that I've played on, the teammates that I had here in college or in professional hockey, he became the ultimate teammate just because of his actions and how he conducted himself in a real difficult time. And I'm not sure a lot of us, I don't know if I would have a similar situation that he did, but his gold medal is no different than mine, other than his says Steve Janicek and mine says Mark Johnson. And that's what it takes to have success. And that's the challenges we now have as coaches in our locker room, because we're going to have kids that are going to be doing well outside of our athletic environment. They're going to be selling this or gaining money. So we started camp in September, so we sort of post every month what our schedule looks like as far as practices and weightlifting and different things that are part of our world with our women's hockey players. So I get a text message from one of my players. Our official start date was September 17th. It was a Saturday, so she wanted to know what time our practice was going to be on that Saturday, because she had an agreement with this company that she had to meet with that was going to compensate her for what she was going to do for them. And she wanted to know make sure there wasn't going to be a conflict within our practice. And so, never had that before. A little change in our world. But you can imagine if I'm the quarterback for the University of Alabama, and all of a sudden, before I start camp, I'm going to be able to make $1 million in endorsements. And so the guy sitting next to you, or the backup quarterback, or the third-string quarterback, what's he thinking? Or the offensive guard that protects the quarterback, what's he thinking? And so it just brings in these different dynamics within our locker room. And so the one thing we have to do as coaches is we have to adapt and we have to change. And the other thing that's come into our world is this transfer portal. I'm sure you've read about that. So last April and May, in all of NCAA sports, you can transfer to another college and you don't have to sit out. And so it affects men's basketball initially, big time, football, men's hockey, and some of the other sports. And so, again, it's one of those opportunities where you got to be transparent. You got to be able to communicate with your players better. So things are changing really rapidly in the world, and where it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now, nobody can predict. And so some of the challenge that we have to deal with, and again, it reflects and comes back to us and our ability to change. In the last 18 or 20 months, we've had to change a lot of things that we've had to do with COVID and all the restrictions that we've had to be under, and try to manufacture and put together a group of athletes and create team chemistry. And so it becomes really challenging, but that's what we have to be able to do. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to adjust, knowing that these things are coming into your locker room. And the better you know what's coming into your locker room, the better chance we as coaches have is to connect with them. And so the last 4 or 5 years with all the social media and all the different things that kids have accessible to, it changes things. I don't have to like a lot of it, but I have to be able to work within it. And so these young ladies that are coming through my locker room are a lot different from that standpoint than the athletes that came through our locker room 6 or 7 years ago. But if I can connect with them, then I have a chance to build some trust within our organization, individuals, and really get them to understand that if we're going to be successful, everybody has to have both feet into the boat, and we have to be pushing in the same direction. And if we can get everybody to do that, that gives us the best chance to be successful. It's easy to talk about, it's harder to walk through. So the other thing I've learned, and I know I don't have a lot of time because I have to open up the questions, but the one thing I've learned in the 20 years of coaching women's hockey and the things that we go through on a yearly basis is that teams go through different stages as you go through the season. And it's fascinating because when initially, early on in my career, things would be happening during the year, and that's why you get gray hair. Wake up in the morning, or you get a phone call from people you don't want to get phone calls from, and kids are doing this, kids are doing that. But it's really interesting because for me, the best time of the year, and if you coach at all, it's usually that first month that you're together with the team. So for us, like when they come back to campus in early September, that's the best time of the year because everybody's smiling. The weather in Madison's fantastic. Everybody's got expectations individually, and they're just excited about the season. So they come to practice, they come to our weightlifting, they come to our meetings, and there's a big smile on their face. They're excited. It's just this time period where you have these new freshmen coming in. You have this group that's coming together for the first time, and everybody's just in a good mood. Everybody's got energy. And then you start playing games, and then you start distributing minutes, and then people start playing in certain roles, and it immediately goes into this storming stage, I call it. And so if you're not ready for it or you don't understand it, it'll drive you crazy as a coach because you always think you're doing something wrong or you need to do something better. But it's just a process because there's confusion within your players because you had a great summer. You were so fired up. You worked out unbelievable. You got in extremely great condition. And you think you're going to play 18 minutes in a game. And then that first game comes along, and guess what? Your minutes are only at about 8 or 9. And so not only are you peeved off at me, you're peeved off the next player you're sitting in the locker room because she's taking your minutes away. So now we got conflict. We got kids and their attitudes have changed. And so at this period of time, which is fascinating because there's no timeline on it. It can last a month. It can last 3 months. It can last the entire season. So as a coach, how do you deal with that? It's sort of like I relate. I have 5 kids, so it's like parenting skills. How good are your parenting skills? Because there's times where as a parent I need to step in and protect my son or daughter, and that's what we always want to do. But there's other times where I have to step back. Kids have to figure things out and make proper choices. And so your team leaders become really important as you go through this conflict period because people are figuring out what we need to do, how my role's going to be assigned. Do I accept my role? Am I willing to play for my teammates? So it's a fascinating period. And I've got different examples of teams that have won championships, that haven't won championships, what time of year we got out of this storming stage. Because once they get out of this storming stage, they figure out like that 4 or 5 minutes is important. I need to do it 100%. If we're able to do that, we have a chance to be successful at the end. No guarantees, but we have a chance. And that's what's going to give us our best chance. And so they figure this conflict period out, and now they start to accept their roles, and things start to become normal, which is very relieving as a coach. And then once they start to become normal, you sit in this stage for just a short period of time, and then their performance starts to go up real high. And so that happened to me the first year we won our championship. We had conflict the whole year. It was crazy. I think I got a lot of gray hairs that year just because you don't know when to step in and when to step out. It's a learning process as a coach. When you step out, you have tough love. When you step back, and you have them figure it out. And so we got late in the season. We had a couple players that I needed to step in, and I needed to do some things. And we figured some things out. The team got together, had a couple meetings, and the strength and the unity started to really tighten up. And from that point on, we never lost a game. Our performance went up to a whole different level, and the kids got rewarded at the end by becoming good teammates. And so it's fascinating to watch. Again, it's a process that's challenging, it's difficult. First time through it is really hard, but it's a learning opportunity for everybody, and it's no different than what happened to us in 1980. You got a group of these all-star guys. It wasn't pretty at the beginning. It wasn't pretty in the middle of it, but we figured things out. And through conflict, we developed friendships. And through friendships, we developed a team. And through the team, you get a chance, give yourself a chance to win at the end. And the only reason we had success in Lake Placid some 40 years ago is we had a bunch of guys, 20 of us, that figured things out through a process that if we were going to have a chance to be successful, we had to do it together. And the guy next to you was more important than what happened to you. And if you get yourself in that position, the top of the mountain is pretty special because the view is quite impressive. So I'll leave it at that. If there's a couple questions, I know we, perfect timing.
Coach, over here.
Yes, sir.
Why did you decide to become a women's coach, and would you be as successful as a men's coach?
Great question. The second one I hope would be yes. I coached on the men's side for 6 years. I had a pro team here in Madison for a year. I was a GM and head coach and trainer and everything else I had to do that year with that team. So I would like to think I'd be successful, but the reason I got an opportunity on the women's side, I was with Jeff Sauer for 6 years on the men's side, and he retired. I applied for the job, and they gave it to my good friend Mike Eves. And so I was sort of at a crossroad. What was I going to do as a coach? I had young kids living in Madison, and the one thing that I had growing up and our family had growing up was stability. And so my dad didn't go into the professional ranks until everybody was out of the house. And so one of the things that I learned being a professional athlete for 11 years was that you're as good as your last game. I was traded a few times and moved cities. And I think when I came back to Madison to finish up my degree and get involved in coaching, part of that was give my family stability and stay in one place till they're all gone. And so I was fortunate, actually, that spring when Jeff announced his retirement, that I was on the men's side. I coached in the World Championships over in St. Petersburg, Russia. And I was over there for 3 weeks by myself, obviously with the team and coaching, but it sort of gave me an opportunity to reflect on what direction I wanted to go. And so at that time, the women's position here was open. And so when I flew back, I applied for the position, and I was lucky enough to get it, not knowing, what the future was going to look like. And so it's been a blessing. I've enjoyed it. I've had some experiences that when I was, 20 years ago, never thought I'd have. My daughters both played hockey. One played for me here. So a lot of good things have come out of it. But to me, the most important thing is we've created a culture to, give these kids that are coming into Madison that are, part of my program an opportunity to experience things that I experienced as a player, getting a chance to play in front of a full house at Laban, getting an opportunity to win championships, and probably equally as important for a lot of them, getting an opportunity to play, whether it's a Canadian Olympic team or the U.S. Olympic team. I've got 4 players that should be playing for me this weekend. They're up in Blaine, Minnesota, that are going to get a chance to play on the Olympic team this year. So that's rewarding. That's fun. That's what I get excited about and put my energy in. But yeah, so life, like I say, if you're the GM and the head coach of the Packers, life changed this morning when the doctor called you up and said, okay, your quarterback's not going to be playing this weekend because of COVID. So welcome to coaching. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Coach Johnson, for an excellent talk and an inspiring message. My question is, are the challenges of coaching elite female athletes different from coaching elite male athletes?
That's a great question. Usually 2 things happen when somebody finds out a little bit about Mark Johnson. Is the first one, what's the difference between coaching men and women? And, you know, when I took over the job, to me, there's no difference. They put their helmets on, they put their equipment on, and I think, you know, whether you're a male or female, you want to get treated a certain way. And so I was fortunate to have a dad and a mentor that, you know, showed me a real positive way to coach, whether it's men, professional players, or high-level women players. And the only rule I put in my first year, 20 years ago, when I walked in the locker room for the females in the women's hockey program, no crying in hockey. How long do you think that lasted? Not very long. And the first time it happened to me, it was like I felt horrible. I'm making this young lady cry, and it was like, ugh. Yeah, so we're making our first trip to Minnesota that first year, and my backup goalie, I just gotten a progress report from one of the professors indicating that this young lady wasn't attending classes. So we're loading the bus, and she comes in, and, you know, I show her the progress report just to make sure it was accurate, and she was, you know, put her head down and said, yeah, this is accurate. And I says, well, you're going to have to go get your equipment off the bus because you're not going to be making the trip because, you know, you're a student athlete. You got to go to class in order to play hockey here. And so she starts instantly Niagara Falls, walking away, turns around, you know, 5 steps from me, comes right back at me and says, Coach, I don't know if this matters, but my parents are supposed to meet us. They're going to meet us at the hotel we're staying in Minneapolis, you know, tonight when we get there. And I was like, nope, it doesn't matter. You're not going on the trip. You're going to have to call your parents and tell them why you're not coming. And I'm sure the hotel will refund them if they, you know, call in time. So conversely, I get one of my assistant coaches. She's got to go in and tell one of the players that was not coming on the trip now to pack her bag and get on the bus. And so she comes out. Guess what she's doing? She's so excited, she starts crying too. That's my first year, the first month into this gig, and I'm going like, what did I get myself into? But, yeah, so. And at that time, I've got 3 boys that are older. My last 2 are girls, so the boys were out of the house by then, so I would go home, my wife, my 2 daughters. I've got a dog that's a female. I got a cat that's a female. I was around a lot of females during that time, but again, it's one of those things, what's coming through my locker room? Is it a male professional or is it a female professional? So now I've got females coming into my locker room and into my world. How can I connect with them? And the first thing I learned is I needed to become a better communicator. And so to answer your question, I needed to be better in communicating to the female athlete, whether it's an elite level, whether it's a squirt, or whether it's a mite, than I would have been with a professional hockey player or a college male hockey player. So I needed to become a better communicator. So I would like to think over the last 20 years, I'm not certainly perfect, but I've become a better communicator when I've coached you know, the women's for so long.
Coach?
Yes, sir.
You played for 2 of the best all-time coaches ever, Herb Brooks and Badger Bob. What made them so successful, and what did you take away from each of them that you use today?
Good question. We started in probably the 3rd week in August with Herb with our Olympic team. We had 28 players. He was an SOB on day 1, and he was an SOB on the last day. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach, but that's just the approach he took. And so we had just beaten the Russians that Friday afternoon. Right? So you can imagine 18 to 23-year-old, you know, college players, you know, thinking that you're pretty good. So we get up Saturday, we have practice, and he was in the worst mood he had been in all year. And we're trying to figure out, like, what the heck's wrong with the guy? We just beat the Russians. At least he could think it would be a smile. But, you know, it's like spearhead like 10 or 20 years, and now that I'm a coach, I knew exactly what he was going through. You know, as a player, you don't know what the coach is going through, but he's trying to figure out how he gets his team that is at such a high for beating the Russians. You know, in less than 24 hours, you're going to play Finland for the gold medal, knowing that if you win the game, you win the gold medal. If you lose, you may not get a medal. So that's what he's going. I'm sure he didn't sleep Saturday night, but he put us through a real firm practice that Saturday to try to get us our attention. You know, like, hey, that game's over with. The next one's the most important one. So as a coach, that's what you're trying to do. But he was in a bad mood, and And I'm sure after the second period when we were down 2-1, and he came in the locker room, you know what he shared with us? He said one line, and he said it twice. And he came in, looked around the room. If you lose this game, you're going to take it to your effing grave. Turned around, said it one more time, and walked out. Short speech, but very meaningful. So we went out the last period in the last game of the Olympics and played our best. We ended up scoring 3 goals and ended up winning 4-2, as history tells us. But what I take away from him, similar to when I had the 2010 Olympic team that went up to Vancouver, it's a tough group to coach. You know, you're trying to create team unity, team chemistry. It's challenging, it's difficult, but if you're going to play your best, you got to play as a team. And I think that whole story, if you've seen Miracle or you know anything about that group of players, that's where we got. And, you know, my approach to it might be different than Herb's, but the end result is that's where you got to get the team. And so it was a challenging, you know, year for all of us, but that's what I take away from Herb. My dad, just the opposite, very positive, very, very upbeat. He was a teacher first. And a coach second. And so being a teacher, I mean, is that he would look at things from the standpoint of how do I teach them to get better? So if you had a bad night or you had a bad game, it wasn't a reflection of individual players. I wasn't mad at individual players. It's like collectively, what can I do to make us play better tomorrow? And so that's what I've really taken away from him, because it's no different than what I do with my teams now. So this weekend we get tested in a couple games, and so after one of the games, I'll sit down and look at it. You know, what did we do well? You know, what didn't we do well? And most importantly, what do we need to do to get better? And so it's trusting this process. And so everybody wants to get good right away. It doesn't happen individually or collectively as a team. You need games, you need conflict, you need adversity. If you're going to really get to a high level. And so, you know, the whole process is something that, you know, we as coaches has to trust. And so it's no different than, you know, a month ago. If I'm Paul Christ, do I trust the process? Even though things may not be going well, do I trust the process? Are we doing things the right way? And if you can step back and be assured that you're doing things the right way, then you got to trust the process. And eventually it'll work itself out. And I think that's the challenging time in the world that we live in as coaches, because everything's about results. And so to me, it's about the process. And so individually, the process is we're going to make you better. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, but you have to trust the process that we're doing things the right way and that you're doing things the right way. And a year from now, you're going to be better. 2 years from now, you're going to be better. 4 years from now, you're going to be better. And I think the same thing was a team. We start in September. By, you know, Halloween, are we better? By Thanksgiving, are we better? Because we want to be playing our best at the end, and it's a process to get there. So, yeah. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Johnson. Life lessons for us. Rotarians, we are adjourned.